Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Access Blockbusters Pod. Welcome back to episode number 123. Guys, thank you so much for joining us yet again on another episode. This is Oscar preview episode, which is a little bit funny because if you're watching this on YouTube, the Oscars will have already happened. So I don't know, have fun listening to my predictions and seeing how bad they were. But anyways, this podcast is released in full the day before the Oscars on the audio-only platform, so I guess we'll get that out of the way. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Overcast. That is where the podcast is posted first, Saturday morning, so right before the Oscars, as well as the individual segment for my Oscar predictions are going to be coming out the day before the Oscars. So hopefully that'll be enough time for you guys to have seen it. But anyways, I digress. We have other things to talk about here as well. Hoppers. I saw Hoppers. Going to talk about that in this segment. John Stewart showing up in Man of Tomorrow. That's exciting. Also, a lot of things about, the Defenders Saga. We're going to talk about that as well. Monsters, Inc. And so much more, guys, as we look forward to the Oscars, as we look forward to Daredevil Born Again and Project Hail Mary. A lot of great stuff coming up at the end of March. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining us. As I said, audio-only platforms, check it out. And if you aren't subscribed on the YouTube channel, then make sure to do so. Give this video a like and let me know in the comments what you think about the podcast and about the YouTube channel as well, and any of the topics that we discussed. So guys, that will do it. Let's get into today's topics. Alrighty, guys, the day has arrived. We are now done watching all 14 seasons of television that encompass this Defenders Saga. And yes, I am including Daredevil Born Again Season 1. You don't have to, but I do because I think it just makes more sense, honestly. But yes, we are now done with watching all of these seasons. And today we have the fun task of ranking all of them. I'm going to rank every single season of the Defenders Saga that I have seen. You can go check out my individual thoughts on every single one of these seasons. There is a playlist for you guys to watch. I am really happy with the way that this series turned out. I'm really glad to just have this on the record, to just have all of my thoughts on these different series. But now we're going to rank them. And I'm going to dive right in because, frankly, I don't want this segment to be 40 minutes long. I'm going to give only about a couple minutes per season because it's just going to take too long. And again, if you want to hear my individual thoughts on all these different seasons, they're all there. So go check those out. But anyways, let's go from 14 to number 1. Spoilers for every single season. This is ahead of Daredevil Born Again Season 2. Who knows? We might update this ranking, and I'll update you guys on where Daredevil Born Again Season 2 fits in once we're done with that in a couple months. But before then, let's go number 14 to number 1. Starting out at number 14, we have Iron Fist Season 1. This is probably a conventional pick. And to be frank, I am a little bit surprised just based on what I saw and just based on the comments that people were making about, Iron Fist Season 1 is so bad, blah, blah, blah. I was ready to be like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. I didn't hate it. I didn't like a lot of it in certain aspects of it. The writing, especially towards the end, was just not good. I really couldn't believe some of the things that were being said. And while I think some of the things with the Meachums and with Madame Gao and things like that were interesting enough, I just found that the performances and the writing were not enough to really justify a lot of the decisions that were being made. And on top of the fact that we got our introduction to two of my least favorite characters across this entire saga in Bakuto and Davos, you can go check out my thoughts on Iron Fist Season 1, Defenders, Iron Fist Season 2, about those characters, because my goodness, can't stand those characters. So Iron Fist Season 1, number 14. But again, not atrocious in my opinion, just not great. Coming in number 13 is Jessica Jones Season 2. Now, I might be a little bit lower on Jessica Jones in general compared to most people. I did, though, I didn't want to color my own interpretation and my own rankings based on other people's, because again, I mean, you read a ranking and you're more inclined to maybe go like, maybe I should, put this series lower or higher. It does seem like, though, based on what I've seen, that at least a decent amount of people agree that Jessica Jones Season 2 is one of the weaker series. I just can't get behind this whole mom arc. I don't know if it was the way it was written or played. I think Janet McTeer does fine for what she's given, but I've said this all along, and we'll repeat this, I think, going up the list, but it's hard for me to really care about Jessica Jones and her side characters. Jessica Jones, I think, Kristen Ritter does a great job, and she is the most interesting character by far, which is great because she's the lead character. But the side characters in the show, Hogarth and Trish and Malcolm, it is really hard to care about these characters, to be honest with you. And because most of them are just not great people. And I'm not saying, again, that everyone has to be this beacon of hope and Superman kind of perfect. But you see in Karen and Foggy, right? They're not perfect people. I mean, Karen, right? You have that episode in Daredevil season 3, which we'll talk about later. That explains her backstory. She's not a perfect person, but she really, brings out the best in Daredevil. And these characters seem like they're bringing out the worst in Jessica Jones sometimes. So, anyways, that's a whole aside. Jessica Jones season 2, though, just felt not interesting. The mom arc of it, just again, not super consequential in terms of where it fits in my head, and I just didn't love it. So Jessica Jones season 2 coming in at number 13. Coming in at number 12 is Iron Fist season 2. Iron Fist season 2, a lot of you guys seem to like. That's great. I didn't hate Iron Fist season 2. Actually, you can go check out that video for my more in-depth thoughts. I didn't hate it. I think it definitely benefited from being 10 episodes instead of 13, which I think a lot of these seasons, frankly, should have taken that hint. I think, like, Punisher Season 2, for example, could have definitely been 10 episodes. I think maybe even Jessica Jones Season 3 could have been 10 episodes. But anyways, I think that the thing with the subplots with Joy and with Davos, they were fine in concept. And even some of the things with Mary were pretty good as well. But this season, for what it's worth, felt a little discombobulated, and I still don't like Davos. I really, really don't like Davos as a character. I don't know what it is. And that, you're going to hinge most of the season on Davos. It's like, okay. And then Mary could have been interesting, but she just doesn't show up for that much, and she's just kind of randomly in there. So, yeah, Iron Fist season 2 was fine, but it just felt disjointed all around. Coming in at number 11, Jessica Jones season 3. Now, like I said, by this point, you're either bought into Jessica Jones or you're not, and that's fine. I just wasn't with the side characters and things like that. But I will say, if I was, this is a pretty solid season. I think that the serial killer Salinger, that's an interesting concept, right? To have somebody like that face off against Jessica Jones. So I like that. I don't think the actor who was played him that interestingly, though, to be honest with you. So every time he was on screen, I was like, okay, generic serial killer. I mean, I guess that's fine for Jessica Jones to face against, but still not my favorite. But again, I mean, then there's all the stuff with Trish, and I don't love Trish as a character. So I think that this season, for what it's worth, it has a lot of really interesting ideas, actually, and could have been a very solid season of Jessica Jones. This feels like in the ballpark of what a great Jessica Jones season could have looked like on paper. I just think the execution wasn't as great as I'd hope it would be. And maybe that's just my own personal subjective opinion about Jessica Jones as a series in general, and maybe it just has a ceiling for me, and that is what it is. So Jessica Jones season 3 coming in at number 11. Coming in at number 10, top 10 now, Luke Cage season 2. Pretty solid. I think that, Bushmaster could have been given a lot more to do. I think Mariah, as a character, really grew into her own throughout the season. She was really scary towards the end of it. I think, as with some of these lower tier Defenders Saga series, a bit unfocused, though. Not in the way that some of the other series that we're going to talk about are unfocused, in that it's like, why are you splitting this show, which is clearly 2 shows, and you're making it 1 show and just cutting it off at the halfway point? I don't understand that. But still, this show just kind of felt like it lacked the central drive. But I do like, by the way, some of the things that they're doing with Luke Cage in this season, of how they're kind of taking this goody two-shoes kind of hero's hero, and giving him a darker twist. I think that actually is pretty interesting, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I mean, I think that there are a lot of, again, interesting ideas, really good concepts in there, but just nothing to really grab onto as a season. But I enjoyed, for what it's worth, I enjoyed what Luke Cage season 2 was trying to do, I think, for the most part. Coming in at number 9, a show that I thought when I first saw it would be much lower, honestly, when this was all said and done. And the more I think about it, and the more that I watch other seasons, you can probably guess what this is, the more it rose in my mind. Jessica Jones season 1. When I first watched it, I thought, not really for me. I think that some of the things that I had been talking about Jessica Jones in general, some of the things that I just make a Jessica Jones season, obviously were there. And so when I first watched it, this was the second season I ever finished, right, out of all of these. I was like, yeah, maybe not for me. And I kind of thought, okay, well, this is probably going to be down the list. The more I've watched, and especially the more Jessica Jones I've watched, the more I come to realize that it is so important to have a villain as magnetic and charismatic as Kilgrave. And he is just amazing, right? Kilgrave is just such a threatening. David Tennant's performance is it's amazing. It's freaky. It's frightening. And I think that this is, for the most part, the most focused season of Jessica Jones. So for that, I give it a lot of credit, and I think that it really did move up the list as we went along. So there's that, Jessica Jones season 1. Coming in at number 8 is slightly above it, Luke Cage season 1. Again, this is one of those shows that really, for some reason, decided to split into 2 series and have the first half be about Mahershala Ali's Cottonmouth, a character and a performance that I thought was great. It was fascinating and endlessly interesting to watch. And not to say that Diamondback as a character was not interesting. I think that he was. I just don't think he was as interesting as Cottonmouth, and I don't quite understand why they keep doing this, or why they kept doing this for a little bit, why they kept splitting their series into two and having two really distinct storylines be part of the series. So I don't quite understand that, but whatever, it is what it is. I enjoyed Luke Cage Season 1. I thought that it was a really great introduction to his side of the world, his corner of New York and Harlem, and I think that it really brought out, I think, a lot of good things in the character of Luke Cage that made me appreciate him a lot more when we got to Defender. So Luke Cage Season 1 at number 8. Coming in at number 7 is The Punisher Season 2. Another series that suffers from being unfocused. There's a lot going on here. John Pilgrim, for example, and then Billy Russo for a lot of it. And I wish they just kind of focused on Billy Russo. The John Pilgrim stuff just didn't work for me. I don't really I can't quite place it. I think it might be a performance thing, but also maybe not. Maybe it's just the character and it just wasn't as interesting as I'd hoped it was going to be. So again, and I think that by the time that you really get, entrenched with the character of Amy, you kind of forget why she was there in the first place, and so it's fine because she has really good chemistry and she brings out a lot of good things in Jon Bernthal and the Punisher as a character. So I like that about Amy as a character, and his relationships with Curtis continues to be one of the strong points, and of course Billy Russo. I think that's a really interesting relationship there as well, dynamic. So I'm glad that they continued that on from season 1, but I just wish that they kind of focused and picked a lane, and particularly picked the Billy Russo lane, because I think that would have been much more interesting, to be quite honest. So Punisher Season 2 at number 7. Coming in at number 6 is the most recent series that we've seen, Daredevil Born Again Season 1. It's pretty high up there. And I think it is because, yes, there are things I really don't like about this season. The entirety of episode 5, I'm just going to forget, it doesn't exist, so that's unfortunate. But for the most part, a lot of the stuff works. The Ayala storyline, Hector Ayala storyline / White Tiger really works. The Muse stuff, when it is there, because it's very, very truncated and very rushed, works. And then the beginning stuff with Bullseye and the ending stuff with Bullseye really works. It's really that element of it, and also the Punisher stuff as well with Punisher and Matt. I love the ending fight as well. It's so emblematic of those two characters. It really showed me that they understood those two characters, which is great. It's just messy enough to be this low, but it's I think shows flashes of potential enough to be this high, if that makes sense. So Daredevil Born Again Season 1 rather, Season 2 is coming out soon, is going to come in at number 6. Coming in at number 5, this is probably my least popular opinion of them all, is Defenders. Some people really don't like this series, and I've seen it a couple times now. I don't quite get why. It's not the strongest. It definitely is not the strongest out of the bunch. But I think it is really solid, in my opinion. I like all the characters together. I think they work well together. I think the storyline in general, while it's not the most interesting or original with Elektra coming back in the hand and stuff like that, it's fine. It is what it is. Sigourney Weaver, I think, overstays her welcome just a tad, but then they get rid of her in favor of Elektra, so that's fine. I like Defenders. I know a lot of people don't, but I enjoy it. So, Defenders, number 5. Okay, now, we've left out an entire series, I hope you've noticed, but there are four slots left, and 3 of them are taken up by the same series, so if that tells you anything. Number 4 is Daredevil Season 2. Yes, this show is unfocused, and it is one of those shows that is split in two, right? You have the Punisher arc and you have the Elektra arc. It's not as obvious or blatant as Luke Cage Season 2, I will say, or Season 1, I will say, where it's literally split in half. Those two storylines are occurring at the same time. And yeah, would I have liked for them to have been more connected and more intertwined? Yes. It is kind of weird how disconnected those storylines ended up being. And it does make the show kind of feel disjointed. That being said, the quality of what you see on the screen is so good. I love Daredevil. I love Elektra in the show. I love the Foggy and Karen stuff that's going on. Jon Bernthal's Punisher was a revelation in the season that I am willing to overlook this. This is the weakest of the Netflix Defender seasons for sure, but my goodness, I still really enjoy Daredevil Season 2. So number 4. Number 3 is Punisher Season 1. That show surprised me because I thought there is no way you can make a show that is compelling about a character who just murders everybody. Turns out you can. Because the show, and you can do it without having to, make it go one way or the other, of one way of saying, oh, look at Punisher, isn't what he's doing great? That's a terrible aspect, a terrible angle to do. Or on the flip side, just have it go, oh, look at Punisher, he's a terrible person. That's another way to do it, and it's probably what a lesser writer would have done, and just made him really a villain, but you're just following the villain. This show humanizes him, and it is crazy what they're able to do. He is still doing crazy things all the way up until Daredevil Born Again season 1. He is just killing people and wreaking havoc on people, and yet there is a humanity to this character that I just didn't think was possible to take from it. So kudos to John Bernthal, kudos to the writing team, and I think that I want to say Dario Scartapane, who is the showrunner for Daredevil Born Again now, I think he got his start on season 1, maybe it was season 2 of Punisher, but yeah, I think this is where he got his start, and it's great work. I think it's great work. So Punisher season 1 at number 3. Number 2 is Daredevil season 1, the one that started it all. It is so good, so solid, so well thought out. Everything with Kingpin, and you're getting to know Karen and Foggy, and then you have Matt and his storyline. It's so good. It's just so good. And the fact that they don't even put him in the Daredevil costume really until the last episode, it doesn't matter because you're just so bought in and invested to this character and his world. And I can't say enough good things about Daredevil season 1. It is so good. The rise of a hero, but a hero that's not like Captain America, a hero that is conflicted and has his inner demons, and this show is able to bring those out so well. I love Daredevil season 1. But coming in at number 1, and I think this is, I think my number 1 and my number 14 are pretty unanimous across the board for most people. And I just think that is because of what they are. Daredevil Season 3. Daredevil Season 3 is one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen. It is gripping from beginning to end. I completely forgot about Nadine as I was rewatching that show. And his entire storyline, because they make it a focal point from episode 1, is so good. The FBI corruption is so interesting. Kingpin ruling over it all from a penthouse apartment is great. And then Bullseye is also so amazing. And what they do, unlike season 2 of Daredevil, for example, they don't just make Bullseye a separate thing. They tie everything in with the main storyline of Kingpin rising back to power. This is just the template, the model of how to make a great episode or great season of television. I am so floored with what they were able to do with Daredevil season 3. I hope that you can someday get back to this level of just incredible television making for Marvel. I hope Daredevil Born Again season 2 is like this, and season 3, because this is just it's storytelling on a level that the MCU hasn't even seen. And I love WandaVision, by the way. I think WandaVision is one of the best MCU things ever done. But this season of television, if I'm ranking all these seasons with the MCU, this is right up there with WandaVision as just one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen. It's amazing. So, Daredevil season 3. Guys, that is my ranking from number 1. We'll just go down the list one more time really quickly. Number 14 to number 1. 14, Iron Fist season 1. 13, Jessica Jones season 2. 12, Iron Fist season 2. 11, Jessica Jones season 3. 10, Luke Cage season 2. 9, Jessica Jones season 1. Number 8, Luke Cage season 1. Number 7, Punisher season 2. Number 6, Daredevil Born Again season 1. Number 5, The Defenders. Number 4, Daredevil season 2. Number 3, The Punisher season 1. Number 2, Daredevil season 1. And number 1, Daredevil season 3. That is my ranking. My ranking is not going to look the same as yours, and I would love to know what your guys' is. This is just my list. Please let me know in the comments what your guys' would be. I would love to hear it in the comments down below. Alrighty, guys, let's talk about the latest from Disney and Pixar, Hoppers. Let's talk about this new film, Hoppers. This is a movie that I, frankly, had very little expectation for. I was not excited about this movie at all. If you saw one of my segments we did a while ago where I did a trailer reaction to one of the first trailers, I was just baffled by this trailer. And even back when Disney announced, I think we did some coverage of it was D23 or something like that, where they announced the movie and talked about the premise. I thought, this is just bizarre. This movie sounds crazy. I don't understand what is going on about this movie. And every single trailer has been chaotic and frenetic and manic and has not really sold me on this idea of people's minds jumping into beaver bodies or animatronic beaver bodies. And I just not been excited. Now, Hoppers, for those of you who have not seen it, and I'm not going to give away that much that, aside from the basic premise and maybe a couple things from the trailers, Hoppers is a movie from Pixar about a young girl who is trying to save part of the surrounding nature in her town. And in order to do this, she enlists the help or rather finds the help of some people who have found this technology where you can put your mind into the body of an animatronic animal that can then understand other animals, and then hijinks ensues and the adventure begins. That's about all I'm going to give away, honestly, from the plot and premise of the movie itself, because I went into it basically knowing that much, and that was my viewing experience. And I think that after having seen the movie, it would be best if you are going to see the movie just to not know that much. So this is going to be a non-spoiler review, by the way, so not going to give away a whole lot that happens within the movie. But again, Hopper's just a movie that I thought the premise was bizarre. I thought that the trailers were bizarre, and I went into it thinking, I don't know, guys, it's Pixar. I trust Pixar. I'm not in the business of doubting Pixar. We'll see. Now, just because I say I'm not in the business of doubting Pixar doesn't mean that they haven't had quote-unquote lesser films over the last few years. I think that a film like Elio or a film like Lightyear, those are films that are Pixar films for sure, but just aren't quite to the level, I think, of your Ups and Inside Outs and Cocos, which I've just been missing, or Inside Out 2s, which I loved Inside Out 2. So I've just been missing that kind of level. Maybe Toy Story 5 will get us there in the summer. I watched Hoppers, and while Hoppers, to me, is still very firmly in the realm of lesser Pixar, it is good, I think. It is an enjoyable movie, and it has a few moments where you go, Pixar is still in there. And what I'm talking about is that, you know, when you watch a Pixar movie and you're going, this is so fun, this is so entertaining, and then bam, it hits you, and all of a sudden you're crying because there's something that happens at the end or towards the middle that you're just so stunned by. And there are some moments in this movie where I'm sitting in the theater, because I'm not going to lie, I'm watching this movie in theaters, and I would say about 60 to 70, no, I would say about 50 to 60% of the movie is just so frenetic and crazy and goofy and wacky and honestly kind of DreamWorksy, you know, if that even makes sense. And I was sitting there going like, I don't even know if I like this movie. It's entertaining. I mean, there's a lot to watch on the screen and there's a lot of stuff that's going by, but I don't even know if I like this movie. But then there are moments when that Pixar peeks through, right? Of course, towards the end, there are those quintessential Pixar kinds of moments, even in movies like Onward, right? Which I think Onward is still in the quote-unquote lesser Pixar tier, but Onward still has those moments at the end with the two brothers that I'm just like, yes, that is Pixar, and you know, it's in there, right? The ability to just tap into these deep, welling emotions that only films like Pixar and you know, other films can. And those moments are there. And there are even moments towards the beginning. There are a few moments, again, I'm not going to spoil, but there are even a few moments towards the beginning where I'm like, oh wow, this movie could really be going for something to that level of an Up or an Inside Out. And unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I don't know, maybe the movie didn't want to do this, but unfortunately, in my eyes, the movie doesn't seem like it wanted to go there, frankly. And that's okay. There are just a few moments where I'm like, oh, is the movie going to kind of go there and really explore this emotion? And then it just kind of zips by it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So in that regard, again, it is Pixar, but it is lesser Pixar. But it is still an enjoyable movie, and there is still very much a theme. There are a lot of themes in this movie, right? And that's not something that happens in all animated movies, and you can appreciate that. There are themes about nature, there are themes about partnership and cooperation and divide and difference, right, in this movie. And I like that. You know, I really did like that from the film. The voice acting is really solid. I think that sometimes it's a little over the top, and I think that that's what the movie calls for. And I will say that the wackiness and craziness of the trailers and the premise is still there, right? This is a movie that, frankly, I think marketing is failing. But I say that in the sense that marketing is failing this movie, but I don't know how you could have marketed this movie. It's a movie that probably, and I applaud this and I appreciate this, came creative first, right? You know, people at Disney and Pixar made up this movie, wrote it, and thought of the concepts, and were like, this is so interesting and innovative. And it is interesting, right? Really interesting movie. And then it was the marketing's job to figure out how to market this movie. And I just don't know how you could have done it, because this movie is wacky in many different ways. Sometimes too much. There are moments where I was sitting there going like, oh, really? This is really what we're doing here? And I just don't know how you could have marketed this movie. Because frankly, I think that you probably, I'm not going to say that you couldn't have made a better trailer from this movie. I just don't know how or what it would have looked like. And I think that people are just not going to watch this movie. And it's hard because I can't sit here and say, oh, this is the next Inside Out, or this is the next Up, or this is the next Ratatouille. I can't sit here and say that. And so I just don't know if a lot of people are going to see it. However, if you are going to see this, or if you have kids, or if you are interested in the next Pixar movie, it's interesting and it's fun and it's good. And there are moments where I didn't cry in the movie, but I tears welled up, just because of just some of the emotional resonance in the movie. Now, ironically, right, as we wrap up this review, it's a little bit of a shorter review. Ironically, I'm going to talk actually about Toy Story 5 for a second, because I think it's relevant. Before this movie started, I was sitting in the theater watching the trailers, right? And a trailer for Toy Story 5 came up. And so I was watching the trailer for Toy Story 5. And as I was watching the trailer for Toy Story 5, maybe this made my viewing experience of Hoppers a little less enjoyable, because I was just sitting there thinking about Toy Story 5, in the sense that the trailer for Toy Story 5, and I said this before in my segment, talking about the trailer, it taps into, there is something about that trailer alone for Toy Story 5 wells up that kind of deep-seated emotion that a film like Hoppers is just not able to do. Emotions that you get from Coco, or Inside Out, or even WALL-E, or Ratatouille, Monsters Inc., right? The end of Monsters Inc. It's beautiful. And of course, Toy Story 1, Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3 especially. But I even teared up at Toy Story 4, And there are moments in that Toy Story 5 trailer where you even just seeing a flashback for a moment, a scene where it harkens back to Jessie being played with, that famous Toy Story 2 flashback scene that is just so devastating and so emotional. It reminded me, right before seeing Hoppers, ironically, of what Pixar is capable of. And so while I enjoyed Hoppers, and frankly, I have no idea, Toy Story 5 might be terrible, I don't know, right? We haven't seen it yet, we will see it. I was just struck by, yes, Toy Story 5, or yes, Hoppers was an enjoyable film, and yes, it was a good time. But I do yearn for the days when Pixar movies can just make you laugh until your stomach hurts, and make you cry until your eyes hurt, and then make you laugh again, and just feel so warm. And there are hints of that in this movie. And frankly, I liked the ending of this movie a lot, of Hoppers, because I didn't cry, but I teared up in several moments towards the end, because they're just really sweet moments. And what I miss about Pixar, not to make this Hoppers review a grand statement about the state of Pixar right now, we could do a whole separate entire podcast episode on that, but to say that I felt what I felt in those moments were tearful moments of sweetness and warmth. And it's not often that happens anymore. I feel like a lot of movies these days are trying to get you to cry because of how devastating something is. And that's, that is what it is. It elicits a kind of emotion out of you. I think Hamnet, in a weird way, not to bring in all these kinds of weird and different and maybe not analogous movies and things like that, but I think Hamnet in a way kind of did that. But to get to the point of crying at the end of Hamnet, you go through this deep and heart-wrenching kind of story. And what I love about Pixar is that there is such warmth in the ways that they're able to make you feel those emotions. And so Hoppers, at the end of the day, is a movie that had glimpses of that. It was entertaining. It was fun. The animation was good. The music was good. The voice cast was good. Some of it was a bit too much for me. A lot of it was wacky and crazy and goofy and chaotic. But I enjoyed the movie. And I can't say that this is the next coming of Inside Out or whatever your favorite movie is, favorite Pixar movie is, because Inside Out is my favorite. But if you are looking for a movie to take your kids to, if you're looking for a moment or for a movie to watch, if you're interested before Project Hail Mary comes out, if you're looking forward to the next Pixar movie, I would say go watch it. It's a good time. I enjoyed it. So, guys, those are my non-spoiler thoughts on the newest Disney Pixar movie, Hoppers. What did you guys think of it? Let me know in the comments down below. Alrighty, guys, Pixar is having themselves the start to the year because Hoppers has just come out. We talked about Hoppers in our last episode of the Access Blockbusters pod, so go check that out if you are interested in my most up-to-date thoughts. And then Toy Story 5 is coming out in just a little bit. So Pixar, again, back in full force, which is exciting, which is interesting. And they're not stopping because a recent article from Variety, at least that's where I'm reading it from, but I think that other sources have since corroborated this, has come out and basically detailed some of the future plans for Pixar. Some of these things we knew, but some of these things we did not know. So there's a lot of interesting things to go around here and to think about as well. So first of all, we talked about Hoppers just came out. I just saw it. Go check out my review. It's on the channel. And then in June, I think, or July, I want to say it's June though, Toy Story 5 is coming out 2026. But the other interesting things that we did not know are being revealed in this article, I think show that Pixar is keeping to a certain pattern, which I have previously said in previous episodes of the podcast that I actually like what their strategy is, and it seems like they are continuing on with that as well. So, this article is headlined Monsters Inc. 3 in the works at Pixar. New originals include Ono Ghost Market and the studio's first musical. We're going to read a couple paragraphs here because I think it's interesting to note. So first of all, they say, they start out with here, Boo, get it? Boo. Pixar is developing a third movie in the popular Monsters, Inc. franchise. The project was revealed in a lengthy Wall Street Journal profile that examined the inner workings at Pixar as the animation studio debuts its latest release, Hopper. So I guess Wall Street Journal was the first to drop this news. So Monsters, Inc. 3, which by the way, everyone kept saying Monsters, Inc. 3. I feel like it's a little disingenuous to call it Monsters, Inc. 3 because Monsters, Inc. 2, quote unquote, was a prequel. So I don't know. I mean, I personally am going to call it Monsters, Inc. 2 because I think Monsters, Inc. 2, what they're referring to as Monsters, Inc. 2, which is Monsters University, was a prequel, and I just sequentially doesn't make sense to me. So I'm calling it, and I'm sure they're going to have a subtitle, because if you call it Monsters, Inc. 3, it's just going to be so confusing. So I'm sure they're going to have a subtitle, but I'm going to call it Monsters, Inc. 2, but they're calling it Monsters, Inc. 3. So anyways, it's going to be a new film that they're in development for. And this Variety article says, quote, it's not immediately clear who will direct the next big screen installment, and plot details, including where in the story's timeline the action will occur, are being kept under wraps. So fair enough. Maybe it's also a prequel, or maybe it's not even with the same characters, although I doubt it. I think you can bring back John Goodman and the rest of the cast they're just still acting. But who knows, right? Who knows? The interesting thing, though, comes right after this. Quote, in addition to the Monsters franchise, Pixar has a few more major sequels in the works, including June's Toy Story 5, which sets Buzz Lightyear and a balding Woody as they face off against a smart tablet. The Incredibles 3, dated for 2028 and helmed by Elemental director Peter Sohn. So I think that's news. I'm pretty sure that's news. And a second Coco movie, expected to debut in 2029. But the studio is also taking some big swings on original stories, like next year's Gatto, about a feline thief in Venice. Pixar reportedly pivoted Ono Ghost Market, a project inspired by, quote, Asian myths about supernatural bazaars, where the living and dead interact. Sounds again, very, very superficially like Coco, kind of, where at least, the living and the dead, that part of it as well, and exploring a different culture as well. So I think that's exciting. From a streaming series to a movie. The studio is also developing its first ever musical from Turning Red director Domi Shi. And so that is the upcoming slate for Pixar, as far as we know. And honestly, I think that this is fully in line with the strategy that we had talked about before that Pixar was employing, where you have pretty much every year one sequel and one original movie. And look, I get it, right? It's great when Pixar makes original movies. When those original movies are successful, right, then you make another one. When Inside Out is successful, you make Inside Out 2, which I love. When Toy Story was successful, you make 2 and 3. Now, you can question, and I have questioned, why are we making 4 and 5? But I think the point is, if you have the right balance of legacy sequels, right, which it seems like Inside Out, or rather Toy Story and Monsters, Inc. are more legacy sequels. But then you have Coco, which is, I think, less of a legacy sequel and more of just a sequel to one of my favorite Pixar movies of the last 10 years or so. It's great. And then mix every single year with original movies. I think that this is a good balance that they're striking. If they were only making originals, I think that's great. I think that they just wouldn't survive, frankly, in that business model. And if you were only making sequels, then, well, people would just complain. Whether or not those sequels were all universally beloved, or at least by critics, I think it's just less of the point and more people complaining about originality. And I feel like, and I know that movies and TV shows are not apples to apples comparison, so I get it, right? What I'm about to say is not a one-to-one comparison. But I feel like people are a lot more lenient on things like television shows, where you make an original television show, and people are excited about it, and then they clamor for a sequel, right? Or a second season. And you want those shows to last for 5, 6, 7 seasons, right? The movies, I feel like people are so, I don't know, every time a sequel is made, people are like, oh no, what a bad idea. I get it, right? let's not forget, Inside Out 2 was made, yes. Inside Out 1 was one of Pixar's best originals ever made. So anyways, I feel like from this slate here that we've gotten, it looks like Gato is going to be the only... Gato? I guess Gato, probably more aligned with the Spanish word for cat. But anyways, I guess Gato is going to be the only Pixar film coming out next year in 2027 from what it looks like. Because if Variety and other outlets are announcing that, Monsters Inc. 3 or 2 or whatever is being in production, is entering production right now, then it probably means Monsters Inc. 3 isn't coming out for another 4 or 5 years. So I would guess from what we've seen, Gato is coming out next year. 2028 is going to see Incredibles 2 and maybe that Anno Ghost Market story. If not in 2029, which is when Coco 2 is going to come out, and then 2030 rather is probably when Monsters Inc. 3 is going to come out. So that's just a rough guess about where Pixar is at right now. But again, I mean, I think that, it's a shame that not enough people are going to see Hoppers, although I've talked about this before. I think the marketing really failed that movie, to be honest with you, because I was just not excited for that movie at all. I only got to see it because I see a lot of things, right? But anyways, and then Toy Story 5 looks really good in my opinion. So I think the balance that they've struck currently is a good one. But anyways, guys, what do you think about Monsters Inc. 3, 2, I don't know what you want to call it, but Monsters Inc., the next Monsters Inc. is coming out along with the rest of Pixar's plans for the foreseeable future. Let me know in the comments down below. Alrighty, guys, this is it. We have made it to the Oscars. We have made it to the biggest awards show of the year for movies, the Oscars. By the time you were listening to this segment, either in the full podcast or in the segmented clipped form, it will be right before the Oscars. I think a day before the Oscars. I was waiting. There have been so many interesting and frankly baffling controversies and narratives going around. And also, just again, waiting a little bit longer, just trying to see if I could get any more out of it, change a couple picks here and there. So that's why I wanted to really wait until the last second, because I wanted to give it just my complete thought and really go into this as informed with my picks as possible. And I think I did pretty well last year. If I remember correctly, I decided to guess 17 categories, and I got 14 of them right. And really, if I had picked Anora to be more of a standout, more of a momentum driver in the last few days, I could have gotten, I think, 16 out of 17. I think one of the ones that kind of threw me for a loop was animated film, but I was really happy with the way that it went last year. So we're going to try again this year. Now, I feel a lot less certain this year, and we'll get into reasons why in just a second. But a couple other caveats before we dive into it here. I'm going to go pretty quickly because there are a lot of categories. I don't know if I think I've done about the same number of categories this year, so there's a lot to get to. I want to do a little bit of commentary for each one, and then obviously save some time to talk about the big categories: actor, director, and best picture, of course. But also because of this incredibly tight turnaround, I unfortunately will not be able to put probably matching pictures of, for example, if I'm talking about Timothée Chalamet or Michael B. Jordan for Best Actor, I probably can't put the matching images. It'll probably just be pictures from the Best Picture or from the Oscar films that I've seen and things like that. So apologies for that. I understand it's not ideal. I would have liked to have edited it a little bit more, but again, just incredibly tight turnaround here. So hopefully you guys understand. Here we go. These are my Oscar predictions for 2026 for the 2025 films. We are going to start here. I am looking at the Oscar website, and annoyingly, it's all in alphabetical order, not in order of the presentation. So, it'll make a little more sense as we go along here. We're starting with writing, W, but Best Picture gets, it sneaks in there at some point. So I'm going to save the big 5 categories, or big 6 categories rather: director, Best Picture, and then Best Actor, Actress, and Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress for last. So we'll do those last, but we're just going to go alphabetically from the bottom because I think that it makes some sense. Writing. Best Writing Original Screenplay here. My pick... Oh, also, sorry, last caveat here. I'm going to tell you who I think will win, but then I'm also going to tell you who I would want to win. And it's something where I will post this on the community tab of the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel, so you guys can see the full list right before the Oscars come out. So you guys will see that. But again, I'm recording this segment now. I'm locking in my picks now. Doesn't matter. Voting has been locked in anyway, so if something catastrophic happens in the next couple days, I don't know, but I think the voting has been locked in. So anyways, here we go. Best Writing Original Screenplay. My pick for this category is Sinners, although my personal pick is Blue Moon. I just think that Blue Moon was a film that was really built on that script, right? It was literally just Ethan Hawke and a couple other characters talking. And because of that, I really wanted to pick Blue Moon. I think Blue Moon has a shot, but I just think that this is a category where Sinners is a front runner. And I should get this out of the way too, up front. This Oscars race, the reason I said that this Oscars race I'm just less certain about is because Sinners has momentum. It was looking like this was going to be almost chalk for one battle after another, but then Sinners nabbed the most nominations out of any Oscar film. Now, you might be saying, well, that obviously means Sinners is going to win all the categories that it's in. Not so fast. The film that got the most nominations last year, I believe, was Emilia Perez, and that film obviously had controversy and whatnot, but also I just think that people didn't really think that was the best movie out of the bunch last year. I certainly didn't, but I know that my opinion isn't always aligned with Oscar voters, but I think people last year thought the same. And so, just because a film is nominated a bunch doesn't mean that it's going to win, and it's going to win the big awards. That being said, as the weeks and months have gone by since the nominations, Sinners has gotten momentum. We'll see if that affects some of my picks later on. And it really looks like a two-horse race now in this Oscars, in these Oscars between one battle after another and Sinners. Because Sinners is the only film in this category, and because, again, people just praise Sinners and its writing and everything else about it, I am going to pick Sinners for Best Original Screenplay, although, again, I would have liked to have picked, or I would like to see, because the Oscars haven't happened yet, I would like to see Blue Moon win for that. Next category, I spent a long time on that one, but we're going to go a little quicker now. Best Writing Adapted Screenplay. My pick for this one is the other film out of that bunch, One Battle After Another, although I would have liked Hamnet to win. If you saw my ranking of the Oscar films, I just love Hamnet, and I think that really the ending just pulls that entire story together in a way that I haven't seen in many other films, but again, One Battle After Another has a lot of momentum. Train Dreams also nominated, but again, I don't think the Train Dreams, the strength of that film is necessarily the script, although I think it is a great script, but I think that there are other things going for that film as well. Best Visual Effects, next up. Avatar, Fire, and Ash for both. It doesn't matter. If Avatar, Fire, and Ash doesn't win this one, I don't understand. Doesn't make sense. So this is the easiest category. This should be a gimme for everybody if you're following along at home. Best Visual Effects, Avatar, Fire, and Ash. Best Sound. Next up is Best Sound. And this one's interesting because this is a film that I think will only win one Oscar. And I think it deserves this one Oscar. F1. I think F1 will and should win Best Sound. I know I didn't see every single one of these movies in a Dolby Atmos or whatever format I saw F1 in, but I mean, the sound of F1, the cars racing by, was amazing. And maybe if I saw every single one of these other films, Frankenstein, I did see One Battle After Another in theaters, but Frankenstein, Sinners, and Surat, I would have thought that they had better sound, but F1, it's just hard to imagine a film with better sound design than F1. So F1, both my winner prediction and my personal pick for Best Sound. Best Production Design. I think that Sinners, is going to take this category, and I think Sinners should take this category. I think that the production design for Sinners was amazing, just kind of building out that town and making it feel atmospheric. Although, I have to say, I feel a little bit nervous now looking at these categories. I do think that Hamnet has a case. Marty Supreme, maybe. One Battle After Another, maybe. But the film that makes me the most nervous is actually Frankenstein. I do think Frankenstein has a legitimate shot at it. And to be honest with you, I'm looking at this now. I'm gonna pull an audible. I changed my mind in the middle of the segment. I kid you not. This is going to be on my official post when I post it later. I am changing my mind. I think Frankenstein is gonna win Best Production Design. So I think that Sinners has a lot going for it, and I think again Sinners has momentum. But the production design for Frankenstein was kind of incredible, actually. The atmosphere it was creating. So I was not planning on doing this before, but literally as I'm looking at these categories and these nominations, I actually am going to switch my pick to Frankenstein. For Frankenstein for both should and will. I just changed my mind for both. And I don't know. Maybe this is a bad idea, and maybe we'll look back on this particular moment in this segment and go, you made a huge mistake there and you lost a pick. But that's where my gut's telling me to go. So Frankenstein, Best Production Design. Best. What's this next category here? Best Picture, we're going to skip that one in alphabetical order in reverse. Best Music Original Song, this one's golden. This one is golden. It's easy. It's done. It's going to be golden. And yeah, there's no debate about that. So golden is going to be my prediction and sure, my pick. It's a catchy song, so it is what it is. Music, Best Original Score. I think that it's going to be Sinners, and I think it should be Sinners. I think that for the fact that again, Sinners was not a movie for me, although I appreciate tons of the filmmaking aspects of that movie. The music was great. The musical aspects of that movie are really what make that movie. And I mean, in my opinion at least, one of the big standouts of that film is the music. And I think Ludwig Göransson is going to win another Oscar for Sinners. So best original score, I think it's going to be Sinners. Best makeup and hairstyling, I think this one's also going to Frankenstein. One of the reasons I felt maybe a little bit better about switching my pick later on to production design is just that I think some of the visual qualities of Frankenstein, I think that this film's going to quietly eat up some of those categories. So again, I think Sinners has a shot. It always has a shot, no matter what category it's in. But I think that for me, Frankenstein for makeup and hairstyling, it makes the most sense to me, especially what they did with Jacob Elordi. I think, my goodness, what they did with Jacob Elordi. So Frankenstein is my prediction and also the film that I want to win that category. Best international, I'm going to skip the shorts categories. I'm not going to do every single category because, again, I haven't seen every documentary. I haven't seen every short. And so I'm just doing the categories that I feel confident in, and or the films that are the categories that I have seen all the films in. So that's my criteria there. Best international feature film, the reason I bring that up is because I have not seen any, or rather all of these films. I've only seen 2 of them with The Secret Agent and Sentimental Value, which is just because they were nominated for Best Picture. Now, I've seen both cases, right? I did some research just looking at other people's predictions and other articles' predictions here and other outlets. And I've seen some pick Sentimental Value. I've seen some pick The Secret Agent. I will lean towards Sentimental Value winning, and I think it should win. That was one of my favorite Oscar films that I saw this year. It was a really beautiful film, I think. I don't feel great about it though, because again, on kind of a coin flip, I think that that The Secret Agent, I think a lot of people really like that movie, and so we'll see, right? We'll see. I think it's going to be close, to be honest with you, but I think that I'm going to pick Sentimental Value for now, and we'll see where we go from there. So that's a category that I'm just not super confident in, but we'll see. Best film editing. I think One Battle After Another will win. That's my prediction. However, I think that for me, I think that Marty Supreme actually stood out to me for best editing. I think that because Marty Supreme had such frenetic energy and it was so chaotic, but yet it still felt controlled enough that I was, I understood what was going on. And I felt engaged in what was going on. I thought the editing really stood out for Marty Supreme. That being said, it's One Battle After Another. I think the consensus here is One Battle After Another for the editing. That film was also chaotic in its own way, so I think that film is going to win that category there. Best documentary short we're not going to do here. Documentary feature film we're not going to do here. Best director we're going to save for later. Best costume design, I think, is going to be Sinners, and I think it should be Sinners, honestly. I think the costumes in Sinners are fantastic. I think that the way that the characters look is fantastic. So Sinners, I think, will take that category. Best cinematography. So my prediction for best cinematography is One Battle After Another. And yeah, that film looks great. It was shot really uniquely in certain aspects. The chase scene at the end really stands out to me as well. Some of the wide shots are great. I will say, though, this is probably the category I disagree the most with. And I think that Train Dreams has a shot. Train Dreams, by the way, being one of my favorite films of last year, if not my favorite, but definitely my favorite Oscar movie that I saw last year. And that film really found its beauty to me in the way that it was shot, the visuals, but the way that it was shot. And I'm going to pick One Battle After Another because I just think momentum, right? And I think that people like the cinematography in that film. Am I going to be disappointed to be wrong and have it be Train Dreams, though? No. I'm not. I think that it has a legitimate shot to win this category. I don't think it will, but I think it has a shot. So cinematography, I think it's One Battle After Another. I would like Train Dreams though. Best casting. This is a category I think that it's new for this year. I don't really know what the criteria is for this. I think we're gonna have to see for a few years what comes out of this, but people seem to think it's Sinners. I have no problem with that. The ensemble in Sinners with Michael B. Jordan playing himself twice, Haley Steinfeld, Delroy Lindo, Wumi Mosaku. So I think the cast for Sinners is great, and I think that, yeah, if it wins, which most people think it will, I think that it should. So well deserved. And then I think our final category here, before we get to the big categories, the final category here before any of that is animated film. I haven't seen all of these. I think K-pop Demon Hunters is pretty much a lock to win. I think most people think so, although I think I was wrong with this one last year. So I think I'm going to put K-pop Demon Hunters. I like Zootopia 2 a lot. I think out of these 5 films, I've only seen K-pop Demon Hunters and Zootopia 2. I like Zootopia 2 a lot, so I personally would, that would be my pick in that category. And now we get to the final 6 categories here. And we're going to start off here with an interesting one. Best Actress in a Supporting Role. we have Elle Fanning. We have, I apologize every single time these names come up here, I mispronounce them. Inga Ipsdotter Lilias for Sentimental Value. She was one of the sisters in the film. Amy Madigan for Weapons. Umi Musaku for Sinners. And Teyana Taylor for One Battle After Another. If you asked me about 3 weeks ago, I would have said Teyana Taylor had this one in the bag. Since then, it seems like Amy Madigan has really grabbed momentum here. To the point where this category is still wide open to me. Frankly, I don't think Elle Fanning's going to win. I think she was good in Sentimental Value, but I don't think she was the huge standout here. I think Amy Madigan was obviously a standout in the way that she took over that movie when she appeared. And I like Umi Musaku in Sinners. I thought Teyana Taylor with the One Battle After Another momentum was going to take it, it seemed like, and I wouldn't be surprised if she did. I think my pick is Amy Madigan, though. I think that just the momentum seems to be on her side for this race, and I think it's going to be close, but I think Amy Madigan is going to take this category. Who would I like to win this category is actually Inga Ipsdotter Lilias, rather. I, again, butchered that name, I apologize. I think she was fantastic in Sentimental Value, so I will put, that's my prediction there. Best Actor in a Supporting Role. Another category that is just, it seems like it's wide open here. Benicio del Toro for One Battle After Another, Jacob Elordi for Frankenstein, Delroy Lindo for Sinners, Sean Penn for One Battle After Another, and Stellan Skarsgård for Sentimental Value. This one, I'm going to go chalk. I think that One Battle After Another, again, has momentum. I think people loved him in that film. I know that there are 2 nominees, but I think that Sean Penn was just way stronger, in my opinion, of a pick for One Battle After Another. I'm going to pick Sean Penn. Although, my personal pick is Stellan Skarsgård. I think Stellan Skarsgård arguably could have been a lead of that film, although I think that the main daughter was probably the lead of that film. But I think he definitely could have been a lead. But supporting actor, I would have picked him, personally. But we are going to go with Sean Penn for One Battle After Another. Best Actress in a Leading Role. This is another category that I think is pretty much a lock here, in my opinion. Jessie Buckley, I think will win, and I think should win. Although I will give huge kudos to Rose Byrne for If I Had Legs I'd Kick You. She was incredible in that movie. And all of these actresses were incredible. Kate Hudson was great in Song Sung Blue. Renate Rainsby, again, huge apologies. Sentimental Value, she was great, like I mentioned before, and Emma Stone in Begonia was, she was amazing. She shaved her hair and everything. But I think that Jessie Buckley and Rose Byrne really stood out to me. But Jessie Buckley to me, Hamnet is Jessie Buckley's movie, and she was amazing in it. So Jessie Buckley, I think will win, and I think she should win. Best Actor. This is an interesting one, because I've been saying on this channel for a while that Timothée Chalamet was a lock to win this category. Timothée Chalamet for Marty Supreme, Leonardo DiCaprio for One Battle After Another, Ethan Hawke for Blue Moon, Michael B. Jordan for Sinners, and Wagner Moura for The Secret Agent. And I said Timothée Chalamet is a lock for this category. Michael B. Jordan has momentum, has huge momentum on his side. Is it enough? Was it enough before Oscar voting closed? I don't know. And yes, Timothée Chalamet got himself in some trouble with the controversy, and I don't know if that was enough to knock him out of this race entirely. If you don't know, he made some comments about the opera and ballet on CNN. You can go check it out. I don't know. I just don't know. I think regardless of that, though, Michael B. Jordan has been sneaking up on Timothy for the last month, ever since I've been saying that it's Timothy's to lose. Well, he might have lost it. And it may not have anything to do with his thoughts on the ballet. I think Michael B. Jordan's going to take this category. I think that we'll talk about the overarching narrative about One Battle After Another versus Sinners for me, but I think in this category here, Michael B. Jordan's going to take it. I personally, by the way, just based on performance alone, think Timothée Chalamet should take it. I think that when I walked out of that movie, I was like, wow, this is a best actor winning performance. But I think it's Michael B. Jordan. I really do. So I'm going to pick Michael B. Jordan to take this category. And I think it's going to be him. I think it should be Timothée Chalamet, but again, it's not my pick, and I think that Michael B. Jordan just has too much going for him at this time. Best Director, second to last category here. Chloe Zhao for Hamnet, Josh Safdie for Marty Supreme, Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another, Joaquin, I apologize, Joachim, I'm awful with names, Traer for Sentimental Value, and Ryan Coogler for Sinners. I think this will kind of tell you who I think is going to win Best Picture, honestly. It's going to be Paul Thomas Anderson from One Battle After Another. I know that Ryan Coogler has also gotten a lot of praise for Sinners and has momentum on his side. I just think that One Battle After Another is such an Oscar kind of movie that I think it's going to be Paul Thomas Anderson to win one battle after another. Although my pick personally, Chloe Zhao for Hamnet. By the way, I love Eternals. If you don't know, I think Chloe Zhao is amazing, and what she did with Hamnet, I think, is next to none. I love it. So Chloe Zhao for Hamnet. Which brings us to our final category here for these Oscar predictions. The final category is Best Picture. We have Begonia, F1, Frankenstein, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, One Battle After Another, The Secret Agent, Sentimental Value, Sinners, and Train Dreams. Now, if you've seen my ranking of all these Oscar movies here, including the ones here and then some of the other ones for acting categories like Weapons and Songs in Blue, Train Dreams was my favorite movie of the bunch. I fell in love with that movie. And what it had to say about the human experience, the way that it was so simple and yet so deep. I loved Train Dreams. It's not going to win. This is a two-horse race between One Battle After Another and Sinners. And I'm going to pick One Battle After Another. When I was doing research for this segment, for this video, there were a lot of outlets. There were many outlets that are fully on the Sinners train. And if they were on the Sinners train, the entire ballot would have been portrayed in that way, where Ryan Coogler would have won Best Director and Michael B. Jordan would have won Best Actor, which I still think he will, by the way, right? We just talked about that. And Wunmi Mosaku would have won Best Supporting Actress and all that, or Best Actress, I think. Best Supporting Actress, I think Best Supporting Actress, and on and on and on. This Oscars to me is the most uncertain I've been, because unlike last year, where I think I got most of them right, and then I stumbled at the end because I just didn't see that Anor had the overarching momentum to take the big categories like Best Director for I think Sean Barker was his name, right? And Mikey Madison and Best Picture. I don't think that, Anora didn't have that same momentum for all the categories, although it won a lot, obviously. I think in this case, it's gonna be one or the other, to be honest with you. I think that One Battle After Another is either going to take most of the categories it's in, or Sinners is going to take most of the categories that it's in. And so I am putting my bets, metaphorical bets, I don't gamble, my metaphorical bets on One Battle After Another. I think Sinners made a huge late push, and I think that it's going to win. That huge late push is going to win Michael B. Jordan an Oscar. Well deserved. He is a phenomenal actor. I just don't think, as I look at One Battle After Another, that movie is just so Oscars to me, if that makes any sense. And I think if I'm stepping into the mind of an Oscar voter, whoever they are, I don't even know who they are, and they're thinking about Sinners, and yes, Sinners has all the momentum, and Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo and Wunmi Mosaku, and it's but I think they'll return, in my opinion, to One Battle After Another and just say this is the movie of the year. I don't know. Right? I could be totally wrong. I might go something like 85 to 90%, or I might go 50%. This is a wide open race, in my opinion, and I cannot wait to see what happens when you're listening to this in a day. So we'll see, and then we'll go over my picks, how I did next week, and we'll talk about the results, and hopefully nothing bad, nothing La La Land Moonlight, or Will Smith slap, kind of things. We'll hopefully not be talking about any of those things. But instead we'll be talking about narratives, about, which film came out big and whatnot, and all that good stuff. So yeah, those are my Oscar predictions, and I will, hopefully by the time you are seeing this, I will have posted these on the channel community tab, so you guys will be able to see it as well. Guys, let me know your personal Oscar predictions in the comments down below. Alrighty guys, we are looking forward to Lanterns. Lanterns is coming out, the new DCU show, in just a few months, and we talked about last week my thoughts on the trailer, which I very much enjoyed. I really thought it was a step in the right direction for the DCU moving forward, just to showcase that they can do different things, and they can do a superhero style show, but in a very grounded fashion, in a way that is detective, murder mystery, but still Green Lanterns, even though people were complaining that there wasn't any green. I, for one, don't really care. Not because I don't care about Green Lantern, but because I just want a good show, and it looks like this is going to be a good show. Well, fast forward, a week later, and we have some more news related to Green Lantern, because it looks like AARON Pierre, who is going to play John Stewart, aka one of the Green Lanterns, is not just going to be in Lanterns in the foreseeable future, but he is also going to be appearing in arguably DC's biggest film since its inception, and DC's biggest film certainly in 2027. That's right, AARON Pierre is going to appear in DC Studios' Superman sequel, Man of Tomorrow. This is coming from Hollywood Reporter, and a lot of the other reputable sources in the industry. But it looks like this is pretty much confirmed and good to go. This article says, quote, Pierre, who is already playing a Green Lantern hero John Stewart in HBO's upcoming DC series Good Lanterns, is joining the cast of Man of Tomorrow, James Gunn's sequel to 2025's Superman. Gunn wrote the script and is directing Man of Tomorrow, which is set to begin production this summer in Atlanta. So very soon. Very, very soon. Now, this is the interesting part, because this is now compiling all the things that they seem to know about the film. And a lot of these things we know, but it's just interesting to see the compilation of information, pieces of information that we've gotten about this film. This is what the article says. Quote, David Cornsweet is back as Superman, and Nicholas Hoult returns as Lex Luthor in a story that sees the two team up to fight the technological alien threat known as Brainiac. German actor Lars Eidinger is playing the latter, one of Superman's classic villains. The movie is also due to bring back much of the cast. Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, Skylar Gisondo as Jimmy Olsen, and Sarah Sampaio as Eve Tessmacher among them. Heroes returning include Hawkgirl, played by Isabel Merced, and the Engineer, played by Maria Gabriela De Faria. Production is scheduled to begin in April in Atlanta and go into the summer. Now, one has to imagine, based on James Gunn's comments, that I'm just going to make my own addendum here, that not only are those characters returning, but you have to imagine at least some, if not all, of the Peacemaker characters are going to be in the show. I think that just based on the ending of Peacemaker in the movie, based on the ending of Peacemaker season 2, we saw Chris Smith enter this realm called Salvation. That seems to be the crux of what is happening in the DCU moving forward. I don't know if that is Brainiac's domain or whatever's going on there, but I would also assume that we're going to see John Cena, who also, by the way, sneakily made an appearance in Superman, the 2025 film Superman. I would imagine we're going to see him as well. But what does this mean in terms of AARON Pierre joining the cast? Well, it means that this DCU is still very much intending to be a connected, shared cinematic universe. So yes, projects are going to be isolated in a sense, but I think characters are also going to bleed into each other's projects, especially because this project feels very much like a Captain America Civil War type of film, where sure, Captain America Civil War wasn't an Avengers film. It was kind of a de facto Avengers film, but yeah, it was still Captain America's film. In a similar way, while James Gunn is not explicitly calling this Superman, Man of Tomorrow, I think we can pretty safely call it Superman, Man of Tomorrow, at least until we see something else to indicate otherwise. But even if it is Superman, Man of Tomorrow, this isn't necessarily a Justice League film in hiding, because I don't think this is the Justice League per se, but I do think that this is going to be a hidden sort of team-up film, culmination film, which is interesting, because by that point we will have only gotten Superman, Creature Commandos, who I don't know if the Creature Commandos are going to factor in at all, but Creature Commandos, Superman, Peacemaker Season 2, which is going to factor in, and then Supergirl, who knows, probably Supergirl is going to show up, we'll have to see. Clayface, I guess Clayface is going to show up, maybe, and then Lanterns. And I think that's pretty much it before we dive into Man of Tomorrow. So it's interesting, right? It's interesting the mix of projects and characters that we have going on for us there. But the other interesting thing with this AARON Pierre news is that this is, I think, pretty quietly a decently sized risk for DC, because, and what have we been saying about the MCU for the longest time now, since they've launched their television series? How hard is it to transition a TV character from TV to the movies, right? We saw it with Kamala Khan. I love Kamala Khan, but her transition into the movies, not the character's fault, but just because people didn't see Miss Marvel and then watch the Marvels, which I think people have their own gripes with, but it just creates a problem where it's hard because not everyone is going to watch every single show and every single movie, right? You introduce a character in a TV show, how are people going to see them in the movie? Unless James Gunn completely just writes John Stewart as if nobody has ever seen him before, which, fair, that might be the way to do it, then people are going to be confused. It's, even a character that you do know, like Wanda Maximoff. You miss a chapter in her story in WandaVision, and you bring her back in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and people are like, what? What's happening? Right? So I think the biggest interesting thing about all of this is because every single one of the other characters so far announced have been in the movies. And that is what it is, right? If you start introducing John Stewart, if you start introducing Peacemaker, then what are people going to think? I think that is, to me, the biggest curiosity. It doesn't seem like AARON Pierre or John Cena, if he's in the movie, will have the biggest of roles, although John Cena might have a sneakily big role just based on where Peacemaker Season 2 ended up. But I find this interesting because, again, Marvel went through its lumps. It took its lumps, right? It went through the trials and tribulations of having to transition into a universe that is now TV and movies. How is DC going to approach this? This is going to be the biggest first test of this, I think. We haven't really seen it tested out yet because none of the characters have really crossed over. Lex Luthor shows up for a little bit in Peacemaker Season 2, but that's more for the TV audience to go, oh, cool. And I think less for the movie-going audience. So we'll have to see what happens there. Guys, what do you make of the news that AARON Pierre'S John Stewart is going to show up in Superman Man of Tomorrow? Let me know in the comments down below. And guys, that will do it for episode number 123 of the Access Blockbusters pod. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, make sure to subscribe, give this video a like, and leave your thoughts in the comments down below with any of your thoughts on what we discussed today. I'm excited to hear what you have to say about the Oscars. So yeah, let me know in the comments. But guys, thank you so much for joining us. Subscribe and check out the audio-only platforms as well, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Overcast. And yeah, guys, that will do it for episode number 123, and I will see you guys in the next one.